Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Wanted to reach out to you and talk about the April timeline for changes to the rating schedules. I'm going to walk you through it, show you where this information is. I've had several folks ask, where do you find this information? So we're going to go ahead and jump on that now. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I truly appreciate it. Every thumbs up and every minute watched really does help the channel expand its reach, which is really what we're all about. At the end of the day, it's about sharing information and getting that information out there. I did want to throw on a special thank you for a super comment, super chat to James B. Franklin. James B. Franklin, thank you so very much for that super chat. I really do appreciate your support. All right, so I'm going to share a screen here with you. I think I'm going to try anyway. We'll see how this all works out. And as we go through this, I will also talk about the changes that are coming into effect and where it shows April. And again, April is the timeline that we are anticipating the VA to bring all this to fruition. So as we look here on the VA's announcement back on February 15th, 2022, proposing the rating schedule changes for respiratory, auditory, and mental health body systems. Respiratory has the issues with sleep apnea. Essentially, if you are deemed treatable or you're responsive to treatment with a CPAP and you file a claim after this rating goes into effect, there would most likely be a 0% rating. Where if you filed a claim today for sleep apnea, either as a secondary condition or as a primary condition for service connection, you have a CPAP prescribed, you'd be looking at a 50%. Auditory changes, the biggest thing is the elimination of tinnitus as a standalone condition. So we're looking to lose that as a standalone condition. They're removing it from the rating schedules as well as the diagnostic code. Mental health disorders, I believe, are going to be positive for folks. I think that there's a way for higher ratings based on the new methodologies in which they will be assigning. And we'll dive into that in a minute. Let's just go into this and show you how we find that April date. So here it shows you where to find the information, right? So this is the aspects regarding respiratory and auditory issues. Here's mental health. We'll go into the mental health one here. And mental health takes us to this regulations.org, or excuse me, .gov, regulations.gov page. Typically, when you hear folks talking, we're usually looking in Federal Register, but this is where it gives us some updated timelines. Now, it does state clearly that this is a proposed rule and that it is the schedule of ratings for disability mental disorders, and that it was proposed on February 15th, 2022, which was that announcement that we were just reading. Now, as you go through this, it's going to take you all the way through all of the aspects with regard to changing the rating schedule. I'm not going to bore you with this right here. Down at the bottom, though, I did want to just show you something real quick. This is the new rating schedule on how they will determine your rating. If you have heard any videos regarding the new mental health rating schedule, you're going to hear about the 5 domains of impairment, and each one of those domains will be rated in severity. A 0, meaning no issues, all the way through to a 4, meaning total impairment at least 25% of the time. So just something to point out there. In order to get 100% rating, you would need to have a 4 rating in at least one condition, or you would have to have multiple conditions, at least 2 at the 3 level. Now, if we go over here and we click on docket, now there is information on the left-hand side, right? Comments, there was a comment period that was long past, but when this got first placed into Federal Register in February, it gave you a couple months to put in any comments. All right, so now if you click on the actual, where is it, docket right here, the docket hyperlink here in the regulations.gov, it's going to take you to a page that outlines more information. Now, here you're going to see the unified agenda. So docket details, unified agenda, docket documents, and all comments on the docket. Unified agenda here is really what you'd want to click on, and this should give you updated information, which right here you will see final action has been updated to April of 2025. Now, obviously 00 is not a day, so this is simply a placeholder. They kicked it down, about, I don't know, maybe 10 months from its original. Originally, they were anticipating, I want to say maybe June of 2024 as the final date, but they kicked the can down the road to April of 2025. So this is where the number's coming from. Final action, again, for the proposed rule for the schedule of rating disabilities for mental disorders. Now, if we go back to the announcement, there's some important information in here that talks about these changes. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of them really quickly with you. One is, right, well, let's go right here. So on February 15th of 2022, the Veterans Benefits Administration published, actually, the rules in the Federal Register for the ear, nose, throat conditions, and auditory disorders, as well as mental disorders. The 60-day period for comments has obviously passed. Since these are proposed changes, this is an important part. Since these are proposed changes, they will not affect evaluations of any veteran currently receiving compensation for an impacted disability. So if you are already rated for sleep apnea, these changes will not affect evaluations of any veteran currently receiving compensation for an impacted disability. What do they mean by impacted disability? They're talking about the disabilities that are changing the rating criteria. Instead, this is an opportunity for veterans and the public, right, to comment within the next 60 days. That's fine. Some of the proposed changes include modernizing the evaluation criteria for sleep apnea by evaluating it based on the symptoms and the symptoms responsiveness to treatment. If symptoms are fully treated by a CPAP machine or other treatment, a veteran would be rated at 0% and not receive compensation. Remember, sleep apnea can also be a secondary condition, can be a primary condition as well for you. And the idea here is to, in this situation, you would either A, want to file a claim before the changes go into effect, or B, file an intent to file. Now that preserves an effective date and effectively placing your claim award date prior to any changes. Remember that in today's world, if you get rated prior to this change and you are prescribed a CPAP, you would be a 50% rating. All right, so sure, VA will award progressively higher percentages based on the how symptomatic the condition remains after treatment. All right, so let's move on. For respiratory conditions such as asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, the proposed rules change would slightly lower the requirements for a 100% rating. Here's the other important one. For tinnitus, right? Tinnitus, the proposed change would recognize that symptom within the veteran's broader ailment and provide service-connected compensation for tinnitus through the disease to which it is attributed. So tinnitus will not be a standalone condition. You cannot be rated for tinnitus by itself after this rating change goes into effect. Now, the one little tiny workaround is if you have non-compensable hearing loss. So a very low but detected hearing loss with tinnitus, they will give you a 10% rating, even though the hearing is a 0. With the tinnitus add-on, they will give you a 10% rating. So there is that as the consolation prize. Otherwise, they're going to be looking for other diseases or conditions in which tinnitus is a symptom. and most likely not give any sort of bump because you have tinnitus. For example, Meniere's disease with or without tinnitus is going to be rated the same. Whatever rating that you qualify for is what it is, whether you have tinnitus or not. Most likely something like TBI will either have tinnitus or not, and your rating probably will not be different. All right, moving on. This is the good one. This is the one that I feel will work out well for folks. The proposed rule for mental health conditions would increase the minimum disability rating from 0 to 10%. So they're getting rid of the 0, starting off at 10 for the rating schedule. And the rule would get rid of the dated part of the rating schedule that prevents a veteran from getting 100% rating for a mental health condition if they're able to work. So they're removing the criteria for social and occupational impairment at the 100% rating. Again, they're going to be diving into 5 different domains, and these domains will be rated the 0 through 4 level. So here it talks about that a little bit. So I just kind of skipped down here for you. Rather than assigning an evaluation based on the number and type of symptoms present, these changes would evaluate mental disorders based on how impactful the disability is across 5 domains of impairment: cognition, interpersonal interactions and relationships, task completion, life activities, and navigating environments, and then self-care. All right, so I'm going to dive into that a little bit more here in a second. Just kind of off the top of my head, but this is important here to just reiterate. There will be no change to any veteran's current rating based on these proposed changes. When the proposed changes are finalized, which they're anticipating April of 2025, veterans who currently receive compensation for service-connected condition can apply for increased compensation. Can apply. It doesn't mean that the VA is going to figure it out for you. You need to get the proper evidence put together and supplied. Now, it says here, even if a veteran's symptoms are no longer warrant the current evaluation they have based on the finalized changes, no reductions shall be made unless an improvement in the veteran's disability is shown to have occurred based on the last schedule. This one's important. The last schedule used to assign their evaluation. What they're saying is if you have sleep apnea and you're prescribed a CPAP and it works great and your life is fine, the rating schedule changes unless you show improvement based on your last rating schedule, which means you would no longer need a CPAP. That's the only way that they could potentially reduce you. And then you have all the other provisions and protections that fall out there as well. The 20-year would be the biggest protection, or being permanent and total would be another huge protection. The 5-year rule makes it more difficult for the VA to reduce. They would need overwhelming evidence showing that you are in a much better position. So let's talk really quickly about the rating schedule changes for mental health. Mental health, again, has those 5 domains. If you are able to prove with evidence that you have a level 4 impairment in one of the 5 domains, you would be 100% rated. If you are able to prove that you have 2 level 3 impairment in 2 of the 5 domains, you are 100% rated. Now, you can start working with your provider now to document that information and get it all in medical records so you can provide that evidence. You could have a provider work up a DBQ for you, start putting that stuff together, getting ready for this change. Starting that process now is probably good. Have the conversation with your provider about the 5 domains, the levels of impairment, 0 through 4 rating schedule, a 4 meaning totally incapacitated at least 25% of the time. So it's not 100% of the time, it's 25% of the time. So that's an important aspect. So having those conversations, working with your provider so you could start documenting this That way, when the rating change does go into effect, you can put in for that increase. One last thing, if for some reason your provider can't or doesn't provide DBQs or the type of evidence that you're looking for, you can always reach out to AME. Their information will be in the description and in the comments. AME is American Medical Experts. They're board certified, solid medical group that assists veterans with providing them evidence for their disability claims. So with that, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.